here. My name is Jay Morrison, and I'm the founder of Young Minds Can, or what we call YMC Community Coalition. And it's very difficult for me after that sermon that Pastor Bell just gave to present to you, because I feel exhausted. I know he's tired. I feel tired. Just I feel fed, I should say, by the word. And so we have several members from our board here. You guys, we don't do it, and I know they don't do it for acknowledgement at all, but I'd like to acknowledge that they all have committed and they are constantly paying the price for the work that we want to do in the community. So on Queen Nikita, I just want to say, what's funny is that these are not people that I grew up with, and not people that I've been in a prior organization with or any kind of affiliation. But at the time, just a short story, at the time that the Freddie Revolt happened here in Baltimore, I'm from New Jersey. I live in New Jersey currently, and I've been doing community work for the last 4 years, really actively. Most of it has been based around financial literacy and just youth empowerment, right? Hence the name Young Minds Can. And all that stemmed from my work in Newark, New Jersey, as I was going to several schools in Newark, New Jersey, Brooklyn, Patterson, New Jersey, Camden, during my stint as a celebrity realtor, right? So a few years ago, I kind of had a side gig on NBC as a celebrity realtor where I showed multi-million-dollar homes to athletes, celebrities, professionals, etc. And also as a real estate expert on NBC's Today Show. So real estate development and real estate investing has been my background for the last 10 years. And the 10 years prior to that, I spent 10 years in the streets as a dope boy, drug dealer, and a felon, a three-time felon. So coming out from the time I was 15 to 25, all I did was sold drugs. And I was first introduced to Baltimore, Maryland at 17 years old, where I took my drug trafficking ring from New Jersey to Baltimore, where I was moving cocaine and crack and heroin. Here in the city at 17 years old, I had my own apartment here on Alameda. A few months later, I would get locked up in New York, facing 3 years to life in prison at 18 years old in the city of New York. Served time in New York, came home from prison, and went right back to the streets, started selling drugs again, got right back in the same loop. This time I would come through Baltimore and make my way out, all the way out past Hagerstown to Cumberland, Maryland, where I would be trafficking drugs. Would get locked up again while I was out on bail in New York, on parole in New Jersey for a secret indictment. I was still selling drugs here in Maryland, got locked up, bailed out in Maryland, so now I was on parole in New York, bail in New Jersey, bail in Maryland, and still was selling drugs. Would end up facing 15 years here in Maryland, which I got a majority of my charge thrown out because the police illegally searched my vehicle, thank God. And because of that illegal search, I was able to plead guilty to only 18 months in jail, where I would go downtown to DOC, and they would ship me off to Eastern Correctional Institution in Southern Maryland. So although I'm from New Jersey, I have strong Maryland ties, the untraditional way. And so, so at 20, so even after jail, I still went back to the streets. So I got out of jail at 22, went back to the streets for 3 more years. And then one day on Newark, New Jersey, on the block, still in the corner, still hustling, I just had an epiphany, really calling from God. I really challenged myself to say, Jay, what are you doing with your life? You're now 25 with 3 felonies. Your daughter's 7 years old. She was born while I was in prison. I had a lot of cars, a lot of jewelry, a lot of money, but I had nothing that my family could be proud of. Nothing my mom could be proud of. Nothing my daughter could be proud of. She's, made up jobs that I was doing because, what does your daddy do? I couldn't really say what daddy did. So I would say real estate. Because I was introduced to real estate while on parole. But one day in Newark, while I was hustling on the corner, and it was 5:30 in the morning, we had a dope strip in Newark, and so approaching my birthday, was just passed last week. And every time it gets around that time, I get really reflective. So I'm like, man, where are you going to be when you're 30? And I remember at 17, I could actually picture being rich from selling drugs, being successful, being this kingpin drug dealer, and I thought I actually would make it from that lifestyle. But at 25, now 3 felonies in, and understanding all the trials and tribulations of the streets, I couldn't even picture for myself any kind of success in the game. So I only could picture being dead or in jail. And so I try to reimagine that picture, kind of remix it, and try to, play my mind, like, no, I got this. And try to picture where I would be when I'm 30 again. And I still could only picture my head on the ground leaking, blood coming out my head, like, literally picture this in my mind, or me behind bars with a tan suit. So there was no more even image I could force in my own imagination of being successful in the streets. And so that day, I cold turned and quit. The drugs that I had left over, I gave to my partner and said, I'm going to try real estate full time. Because at that time, I also asked myself, are you a drug dealer or are you a hustler? See, a hustler could sell anything and hustle anything, but a drug dealer only could sell drugs. And I felt that I had more talent than just being a drug dealer. I felt I could do anything. I mean, I felt I had the charm and charisma and the intellect to do anything, but I chose the route of drug dealing. So to prove to myself that I had more talent than just drug dealing, I quit the drug game and went full steam ahead as a mortgage professional investor into real estate. Lo and behold, 3 years later, by mid 2007, 2008, I made my first $1 million legally in real estate by the age of 28. So I would go on to make more millions and more money and have a lot of success, but unfortunately, and I was speaking in churches and doing kind of youth presentations at that time, and I was very humble about my life transformation. But then a dope boy or a transformed dope boy who catches millions a few years later hasn't totally matured all the way. And so not that I went back to a legal lifestyle, but my mentality and my mind, my ego, my arrogance all kicked in. And so thinking that and not realizing that the purpose and and people I could affect with my story and my transformation, I thought it was all about me and what I did and the money I made and how I could feed myself and my family. And so all the I, me, my crashed down on me, and I would end up losing everything I had and had to go bankrupt and rebuild. And God humbled me, and I remember 2 years of my life being very humble, almost to the point of depressed, because I couldn't believe that I lost so much money. I thought I was so stupid, I was so this, I was so that. How did you screw it all up? And not realizing that was just God taking it all back to kind of say, look, I gave it to you with a purpose, and you totally went off track with purpose. So let's bring it on back real quick. And so in that period of realizing, what my purpose was and how do I get back, I found that as I reapproached getting back into real estate, as I tried other businesses and on the nightclub and party promotions and all these different things I was trying to do to use these talents I had, I started reading, I started getting back into the Bible, back into church, and what I realized and at that time when I made a lot of money, I got away from church, obviously, right? I got away from values and principles. And one of the values that I realized and where I had kind of a non-clarity in regards to being a Christian and being in church was that it's very simple, as Pastor touched on, being a disciple, just be Christ-like. So for me, I was like, well, what's that mean to be Christ-like? And so I would read the gospel, particularly Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, and I would look at how Jesus moved and how he maneuvered while here on earth. And what we've seen is very, very, very simple with what our organization is. We're not a religious organization. We invite people. We have non-denominational or non-religious or whatever kind of people in our organization. We have Muslims in our organization. I don't care about that in regards to our community work, but just tell me a little bit about me as a founder of the organization. What I patterned my life at when I talk about being Christ-like was that Jesus was adamant, he was consistent about helping those who are least among us. About those who were in prison, those who were sick, and those who were poor. He was very, very clear and cut on that. Outside of all the worship and everything else that we do, he said to how you treat those who are least among us, how you treat me, in paraphrasing. And so as I went out and started getting back into real estate and seeing that I started having more success again and started talking to schools, and as I was teaching people financial literacy, everyone would say, well, why are you going to the worst high school in the city? They're not going to get it. You should go to science high school. Those kids are smart. I said, why do I want to go heal people that ain't sick? Why do I want to go teach a high school about their credit scores and financial literacy, go to the best high school in the city, as opposed to the worst high school in the city? So anyway, going through that phase of teaching financial literacy and then going in inner city schools and seeing that we got a much bigger issue than just finances, which is a major issue, but we got a culture issue, we got a value issue, we got social issues. And so that just basically was my evolution over the last 4 years of getting to a point within our organization where it got less about just me and my talents as a real estate developer, investor, and what I know about money, which is a core part to make people in. I can tell you how to make money. I know that well. but that there were larger issues in our community and that we needed some holistic repair. So when the Mike Brown thing happened in Ferguson, murder happened in Ferguson, I didn't go there. When Eric Garner's death happened in New York, right in my backyard, Staten Island's only about 10 minutes from me, I didn't go there. I didn't protest in New York because I saw all the protesting. I felt everyone was off message. We're making all this noise. What are we really asking for? What is it that we really want? And so when the Freddie Gray incident happened here in Baltimore, I said, okay, I felt it. It was like, God said, Jay, tomorrow go to Baltimore. And I planned on going. I told everybody I was going. And then the morning of, I was like, man, why am I going to Baltimore? I don't need to go down there. And something was like, just go, just go, just go. So I went to Party City. I rented a red megaphone, and I went right to Northern Penn just to support and protest that, it's enough of this injustice that's going on. And so those protests throughout the day led to organic marches around the block. And then next thing I know, we're marching down to City Hall. We thought we were going to Mondawmin. And somebody said, let's go to City Hall. And so we marched to City Hall. Next thing I know, I have like 300-400 people behind me marching down to City Hall. And then CNN covered it, other news media covered it. And then that week, I was on Fox News debating Judge Janine and on Blitzer, Anderson Cooper, and on all these platforms. And it was called the BET for a panel in which they sent busloads of Bloods and Crips from Baltimore to New York to the BET for the Solutions Forum. So in that forum was a bunch of heated debates, and the Bloods and Crips and street dudes are speaking to the activists and all the nonprofits, and they're saying, well, where y'all at? If all y'all in our community, we don't see y'all. And so at the end of it, as we all were going back and forth, I called eyes on one of the gentlemen who actually lives here on the west side off of Edmondson, and I was like, what do y'all want to do? They said, well, why don't we build a Black Wall Street? Why don't we build a Black Wall Street as a solution, right? As an actual practical solution. So I said, all right, cool, I got you. That's how I'll be down there Saturday. He said, all right, he gave me his number. And he thought I was just bluffing, but I actually came that Saturday, and then the Saturday after, this is probably I would say, I've been to Baltimore at least 24 times since the Freddie Gray incident, probably 36. In the start of building. So he took me to the west side area here, we started on Edmondson, started touring it, and I started thinking, and from a solution standpoint, having a vision, well, what does a Black Wall Street look like? Black Wall Street, which was a very successful Black community in the 1920s that was burnt down. And I was like, well, it wasn't just the fact that they had pretty houses and buildings, but in order to have that, there was pretty people, there was pretty houses. There was a economically empowered and a socially elevated community. And a community that had political power as well. So I got to thinking, putting my solutions hat on, and saying, well, what can I do in my capacity, my talents, to help bring a Black Wall Street to life in Baltimore with the young men and women that want to actually build this. And so what I knew I could do easy was to redevelop real estate. So we identified areas of vacancy value in the city. We identified areas in which we could redevelop.